Full and Bloom interview with drummer Albert Bouchard. More info at fullandbloom.com. You have a new release, Re Imaginos. Could you talk a little bit about that, about the origins of the songs? I know it was intended, I believe, right, as a solo release in '84?
Yeah. The record that ultimately came out as a Blue Oyster Cult record was originally supposed to be a solo record for me.
Right. But they released it in '88.
Yeah, in '88. But the story was started way before that, maybe 20-something years before that. When I met Sandy Pearlman in '67, he told me about this character and all the adventures. And shortly thereafter, he showed me lyrics for a song that was supposed to be about this a story called Blue Oyster Cult, which we didn't have a song for it at that time. When I wasn't in the band anymore, of course, Sandy and I had been working on it for many years and had a whole record's worth of mostly new material for it. So, including the Blue Oyster Cult song, which actually appeared on a Blue Oyster Cult record in 1974, I think, on the Secret Treaties record. And it was called Subhuman because we didn't want the song to define us as a group. I don't know why we didn't call it Blue Oyster Cult. We just didn't. So I changed it back to Blue Oyster Cult. I added the lyrics that were left off. I added a little extra music to accommodate those lyrics. And so that was one of the ones that had been recorded before. That and Astronomy, I think, were the only two songs, yeah. And Gil Blanco was recorded for a Soft White Underbelly record, so that was many years before. And
so it's kind of bizarre to think that this is something that you're intending as a solo project, and then the band releases their version in '88 without you. You guys got in a lawsuit, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was me. I was mad. I sort of regret it now, although I did feel that I needed to do that because I felt like somebody was taking advantage of me. I wasn't sure who, so I just sued them all. But, as it turned out, Blue Oyster Cult was not taking it. They needed a record. They needed a record or they were going to break up. So they put out that record and they didn't break up. So it served their purposes to fulfill the Columbia contract. For me, it was actually a much better thing than I realized because I had spent so much money on this record with paying all the different musicians and going from studio to studio. I think we used Boogie Hotel, Kingdom Sound on Long Island, then Sunset Sound in L.A., then then the Automat in San Francisco, and then the Alpha and Omega studio in San Francisco. So there was 5 different studios that we recorded it in. Actually, I recorded Joey Sarasano's vocals at the record plant in New York City, so it was 6 altogether. So it was a freaking fortune that I owed the record company. I mean, high 6 figures. It was a lot of money, and Blue Oyster Cult, because they put it out as their record, they absorbed, we as a group absorbed the cost of the record. So that was actually, in retrospect, it was a very generous thing that they did, and I'm sorry that I sued them.
And what were you suing them for? Were you just trying to stop the release?
I wanted damages, basically, because the record, it came out already. So I wanted, number one, to be paid back from the money that I did lay out for the record out of my own pocket, which was about $10,000. And then what I wanted to be back in the band, and they didn't want me to. And so I thought if I sued them, I could at least make them pay for not letting me back in the band when they were representing themselves as my record, which, I mean, and I thought from a practical angle, they didn't know the songs. They couldn't go out and perform them without somebody showing them how to, I knew every part on the record, so I could show them how to play it. But they didn't want to. They were like, "Oh, we did you the favor. We got the record company off your back. We got the record company off our back. Just let us go do our thing. We're not going to promote this record."
So that's how it got resolved?
Yeah, and I think I was I wasn't satisfied with that. But over time, I mean, I've been playing with him now for the last 10 years, so everything's good. We understand where we were coming from at the time and all of that stuff. You're like, so that's how you felt. Well, I felt like, so we got into that when I was on the road with him in 2016. So those of us who needed to talk about it, Eric didn't want to talk about it. And I understand why. He had nothing to do with any of it. So he wasn't the one that wanted me out of the band. And he was just going along for the ride. So he's like, I got nothing to say. What happened, happened. I'm sorry you felt bad.
And so the new release, Re Imaginos, did you just cut that at your studio?
Yeah, I have a pretty large apartment in Manhattan. So my living room is part living room and part studio. So I have
nice.
It's a pretty good sized room. I can't play live drums because it is a New York City apartment, and it's bad enough when I first moved into this apartment, I was working on the Blue Coupe record, and so we had the five of us, Joe, my brother Joe, Dennis Dunaway, and Tish and Snooky. And Dennis's wife Cindy, and we're all singing on this song, right? Because we want a big gang vocal. And then I go downstairs and the doorman goes, people can hear you. They hear the singing. He goes, yep. I said, did anybody complain? He goes, no, just, you should know. Nobody complained. But I realized then that I could not really might be some percussion or something, but my next door neighbor is a drummer.
A professional drummer?
Oh, yeah. He played on Broadway. He played in shows that I went to, like Fiddler on the Roof, and played West Side Story. He played Pippin. I can't remember all of them. Guys and Dolls. He played on every show, basically. He was like the Hollywood guy. I mean, the Broadway guy. And so he said, I'm a drummer too. And where'd you drum? Just here and there. I did some Broadway stuff. And then I looked him up on the internet. His name is Stanley Koor, Koor. And so I said, well, you want to jam? We could jam on some stuff. He goes, I don't play anymore. Arthritis is killing me. I said, yeah, me too. I said, I'm at that time I was 72, and I said, I'm 72 and it's starting to set in, that arthritis. He goes, yeah, I'm 94. I gave it up about 10 years ago. I'm like, he does not look 94. I mean, I thought he was maybe 85 or something. But he's very young looking. Now he's 96. I see him once in a while in the building, but when I first found out who he was, I used to go over to his apartment and he'd tell me stories and stuff. And I said, I got to get you for my vlog. I got to interview you and your adventures in Indonesia and China and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I did all of that too. I mean, his wife was a singer, so she passed away, and that was about a year before I got here. So, I know he's looking forward to us getting back together. Me too. So we've got our shots. So it's just a matter of waiting. And we'll hang out.
And so since you can't get loud in the apartment, I'm assuming that's why you used, it sounds like you used one of those Roland electronic drum kits.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
I have a Roland kit. I had a drummer that was going to play on it, but he got busy with his job, and he's a young guy. He was actually one of my students in the school and graduated about 20 years ago. But his job got very demanding, and then he got hooked up with this girl, and they moved into a bigger apartment, so he needed more money, and so he's like, I can't do it. And then he said, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's okay. I know somebody who can play the drums. So I ended up playing them. So I still don't have a drummer, although I have a million drummer friends. I'm sure when the time comes and I have some gigs and I can offer some money, I'm sure I can get some people to play with me.
Do you record kind of old school? Are you doing Pro Tools? Or are you using a console, anything like that?
No, I do everything in the box. Well, most of everything in the box, except for maybe I do a lot of acoustic guitar, so that's in real time. And for this last record, I started out with the idea that I was going to make a tempo map of all the original the songs that were not played with a click track, so that it had that ebb and flow where it slows down when it gets soft and stuff, and then it speeds up when it gets exciting and that kind of thing. So, but I ended up, it was just too hard to do it that way. I ended up feeling like, well, now I'm pushing the beat too much, and now I pull back. And so I just straightened it all out, did everything to a click, except for one song. And after the record was done, I was like, that's the one that I like the drum part the best on. I think I liked it specifically because it didn't have a consistent tempo. The tempo varied. And so with the new one, I've actually built in the tempo changes so that it's not consistent. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I took it a little further, and started like just manipulating the tempo so that it did what I wanted it to do, which is pretty fun. So that's also why I like doing it with electronic drums. Is I would start every track out with a drum loop, and then I would then after I had basically rhythm guitars and a vocal. Then I would go and play along with the whole track live and try not to mess around with that too much. And then so then I'd have a live drum track, but then I get to cheat a little bit because in the old days you'd punch in if you thought the fill wasn't great. Well, I don't bother with that. I just wait until I've got it all done and the bass plays a nice little riff there. I think I'm going to play a fill that matches that. So I'll just make another track. Just play that fill and pop it into the drum track.
Right.
I get to really orchestrate my parts much more than I ever did.
And I also want to make sure that we mention the live stream concert on April 10th. And so you're doing Re Imaginos in its entirety?
Yes, we're doing it in the studio. It's basically going to be the duo, myself and David Hirschberg, who played on every cut and played and sang on every cut. Played bass and guitar on one song. Now on the new record, he's playing some more guitar, actually playing some leads and stuff. So, but that's another story. Imaginos 2 is what I'm working on currently, and of course, it's in the front part of my brain. But we played these songs so many times. These Re Imaginos 1 songs so many times, and of course, I know I probably will have lyric sheets just in case. Or maybe I have an iPad with the lyrics, that I can scroll through and it's just a security blanket, really.
Of course, yeah.
Because when I was doing the vocals, I didn't have any lyric sheets. I just did it from memory, which is kind of a good way to do it.
Did you write all the lyrics, or are these Sandy's lyrics?
I wrote a word here and a word there and maybe a phrase, but it's sort of like Sandy wrote all the lyrics and I wrote all the music except for little bits here and there where he would suggest some music, and so he helped me with the music and I helped him with the lyrics when I could. It was a real collaboration.
And what's the Imaginos storyline about?
I think that it's really this chosen person who is able to change shape and has all sorts of abilities, but also is a human being and goes through the world and tries to figure out what he's doing, with his life, and he goes here and he goes there and he tries to figure out things. In one part of the story, he goes to Germany to study with this guy who's doing research on life extension, which is Dr. Frankenstein. And by the end of that, he decides that, okay, that's not really what I wanted to do. And so he goes back, he goes back to Mexico and and he gets sick and they quarantine him on the beach and he's, by himself, so they put him off the ship and then he gets discovered by this alien species called, they call themselves the Blue Oyster Cult. And they're aliens that look like oysters. But they give him magical powers and magical knowledge that he goes into the jungle and the Yucatan and finds the Black Mirror, which he brings back to England. And that's basically the end of the story. He brings the mirror back to England, gives it to his granddaughter. And then is the next chapter.
And that's what you're working on now?
Yes.
Okay. And so you have lyrics for all that as well?
Oh, yeah. There's quite a few songs that were recorded already by Blue Oyster Cult. So, and some of them we've modified to fit the story a little bit better. But it's Re Imaginos 2, Bombs Over Germany.
And when do you expect that to be out?
It'll be out next fall. I have 2 songs that are ready to mix and a whole bunch of things. I got a Richie Castellano guitar part coming this weekend, and Eric Bloom is doing his vocals this weekend. Joe Sarasano is doing his vocals next weekend. So I'm waiting on basically this one I'm not singing all the songs. I'm singing about 2/3 of them. But I have my brother Joe singing a song, Buck Dharma is singing a song, Joe Sarasano is singing a song, Eric Bloom is singing a song, and well, that's it. That's it so far. I was going to have Mary Spender do one, but she's a little busy, so I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's an internet YouTube star.
I haven't, no.
Yeah. She had me on her show. She does.
Oh, is that the English girl that has the guitar story stuff that you did?
Guitar stories, yeah.
Sure, yeah, I saw that. I saw that interview.
I'm addicted to her stuff, and I sent her the story, and she said, "Oh, you got to be on Tuesday Talks. Let's make it a whole big thing." So
and she plays. It looked like she plays guitar. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she's a guitarist. She plays viola too. She's a classically trained musician, but her thing is singing, and mine too. Really, it's kind of funny. When I first got started, I didn't care about singing at all. I was more into playing guitar or playing drums, and over the time as I've gotten older, I just love singing. I love it. It makes me happy. And unlike every other thing that I'm doing, like my guitar playing has definitely gotten worse. I've gotten older, the arthritis thing. And the drumming is, it's still pretty good level. I can play most of what I used to play, but some things I simply cannot play. But singing, I can actually sing better than I ever have. So isn't that weird?
It's beautiful. Maybe it's all intentional, in some ways that you focus on other things. I wonder, do you do anything like anti-inflammatory eating or anything like that? Or do you take stuff for arthritis?
I take, like, for instance, when I'm going to do this live stream, I'm going to pop a Tylenol. That's it. Tylenol basically gets rid of it. It's not even that serious, really. It's just sometimes if I'm playing a lot, I'll feel it. Not while I'm playing, but the next day. And sometimes if I'm not warmed up and I go to play, it'll be like, ouch. Well, maybe I can just play it with one note. Where can I find an open string?
How's your brother Joe doing?
He's doing great. We have a whole bunch of projects. We did a bunch of charity things over the past year for different friends of ours, and we just did one. I don't know when it's coming out, but it's with the guy. His name is Peter Barton, and he's a bass player with the UK Animals, which is basically a couple guys in the original group, but not Eric Burden. And so he's doing a charity record, and he has us playing on a song with the current lead singer of Argent and some famous guitar player too, but I can't remember who it was. But that was a great, fun track to do. And Joe is now doing a thing with Al Di Meola and Billy Cobham.
Holy shit.
He's doing a Pink Floyd tribute.
Wow.
He's playing bass on Pigs.
Al Di Meola's playing on it?
Al Di Meola and Billy Cobham.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, I know. I haven't heard it either. He just told me about it. I'm like, whoa, okay. You trumped me to use a bad word, but yeah, he's definitely okay. I got Mary Spender, you got Billy Cobham. Maybe he played drums with me. I don't know. I saw him at the December 2019 on his birthday, and he didn't remember. But the last time we saw each other was on my birthday in 1975 or 76, I think. He was playing with his Billy Cobham group. But yeah, he was one of the first people I met, when we toured with Mahavishnu.
Right. Man, what a great tour that must have been with the BYRDS.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a BYRDS and Mahavishnu sandwich with
right
up in the middle.
Do you have any good John McLaughlin stories?
Well, I remember one day we were playing a gig and we had some like barbecue pulled pork or something, and John and Sandy Pearlman was eating it, and John walked by and said, "Oh, you will eat burnt flesh, won't you?" I'm like, okay, well, it's funny because now I'm a vegetarian, so.
Oh, wow.
I'm totally down with that now, but he was a nice guy. He was always nice. It was just, I think that the smell of the burnt flesh bothered his sensibilities.
Now, they opened the show, then you guys, Blue Oyster Cult was next, and then the BYRDS headlined.
Yep.
Anything stand out from that tour?
Oh my God, yes. That was our first, no, it wasn't our first abject failure. We'd had a whole bunch before that. But that was probably the most people that we played, and felt like it was a situation where after John McLaughlin, the Mahavishnu Orchestra had played, we didn't want to go on stage. We really, we had somebody in the management. It wasn't Sandy Pearlman, but it was one of his friends who he said, oh, he can help us. He's always a snappy dresser and he can dress us. So he's like, get rid of all the leather, man. Every group has got black leather. Every group is trying to look tough. What you want to do is wear button-down shirts and cardigan sweaters. And so that's what we wore on that tour. So we had no show, we had no look, and we were scared out of our wits by Mahavishnu. It was like, oh. And then we played our thing, and then the BYRDS come in and just obliterate us with hit after hit after hit. But ultimately, it was great because we realized that we really had to get professional fast.
And so when you're playing like that, I know when I'm kind of looking at things, there are several times in those early days, even where you guys had to change names because you got bad reviews, but there were several times where you guys had bad shows. What did a bad show for you guys look like?
For Mahavishnu, we just weren't prepared to compete on that level with those guys. I think that there's a big difference between the first Blue Oyster Cult record and the second. The second one is like, okay, if we ever come across a group like Mahavishnu, we're gonna be ready. we're gonna play our asses off, and we built that into the song so that that everybody got a chance to shine on every song. So that was one of the things. And then for the Fillmore show, it was Eric's second show really, but it was not just Eric. It was like he was trying to sing the songs that the other guy sang, the old lead singer. And they were, Les is like a solid baritone. He's got a pretty low voice. And Eric has a high voice. So he didn't sound very strong on those low tunes, number one. And number two is that we didn't have our sound together at all. I mean, we were playing out of these acoustic 360 amps. Transistor amps. Why? Because we saw the Doors using them, and they sounded amazing. And of course, when we finally got friendly with Robby Krieger and Ray Manzarek, many years later, we said, how did you get such a good sound out of those acoustic 360 amps? And they said, we removed the amps and put in Fenders. They were all Fender amps.
That's hysterical.
It looked like the acoustic amps, but it had Fenders inside. Yeah, so our amps sounded bad, and to top it all off, I had put these accordion mics, these little contact mics inside my drums, because every show I went to at the Fillmore East, the drums were not loud enough. Even Keith Moon, who bashed the crap out of his drums, I couldn't even hear him because the guitars were so loud. The only group that I remember that I could hear the drums, and they were only a duo, was Lee Michaels. Geez, that's just like Papa was a Rolling Stone. I bet they stole it from him. But anyway, he had a hit in 67, I think, and they played. It was just him and a drummer. Frosty was the drummer. He's a big, giant guy. He didn't need a mic, man. He just he crushed those drums, and so it was an organ and a drummer, so it was very controllable. MC5 couldn't hear the drums. Nobody, Hendrix, forget about it. You could not hear a note Mitch Mitchell played. You saw him doing something, but so I put accordion mics in my drums, thinking, oh well, they'll hear me. Well, they heard me, but it sounded like crap, unfortunately. So yeah, that was. Oh wow, that was probably the biggest disaster. But we played with Humble Pie, where they just totally blew us off the stage. I mean, we played a lot of shows, we played with the Grateful Dead, and they didn't blow us off the stage.
Nobody'd know. Yeah, I mean, even if they did.
We actually, at that point in time, we sounded more like the Grateful Dead than anything else. They liked us. They thought we were great.
Speaking of the Doors, they're one of my all-time favorite bands. Did you ever hang out with them while Morrison was alive?
No. The first day that I met them, they played Stony Brook College, and I met Ray and John and Robby, but they came separate. They were in their own limo, and Morrison came in his own car or limo or whatever. I didn't see him arrive. I guess, I don't know, maybe the management, or I don't know who was with Morrison, but the other three were all in the car together, which I thought was kind of odd.
And Robby played on the 88 release, right?
Yes, he did. He played on about half the record, but they only used his guitar parts in 2 songs. Yeah, well, which was I felt like, why did we do all of that? What he played was brilliant. And I don't know why Sandy decided not to use it. Well, some of the songs, like Girl That Left Me Blind, they left the whole song off the record, which I thought was terrible because it was a great song. And there were some songs I wasn't happy. Well, there was one song I wasn't happy with, and that was Imaginos, which I, unfortunately, you get into the studio with your band and they're just grooving and you're like, yeah. But then you're like, how am I going to sing this? It's like twice as fast as I meant for it to be. And it's just like rushing through it, and we even went and recorded another version, a slower version, so that I could sing it easier, and they didn't use it. So I don't know. I would have left that one off and put Girl That Left Me Blind on, because that was a brilliant rendition. And I tried to do my best to do it like that without and make it slightly less corny. Because it does have a do 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 do. I did write that, and we played it, and ultimately I thought, that's too. The song it's still a horror song. It's still about something scary, so that was just a little bit too much of a fake out. The Christmas, that's corny also, but in the good way, because it's kind of ironic. But I'm very happy with how the song's on Re Imaginos, what I've done now. And I don't know that if I had stayed in the loop even after BOC started overdubbing their parts, if it would have come out better. I'm not positive. What I do know is that given the insight of time, I had a different insight in approaching every single song. So that helped a lot.
Are the master tapes still out there with those additional Robby Krieger tracks?
Well, like some songs like Girl That Left Me Blind were never mixed. They never even got a mix. Now, so on this new record, I have a bunch of other guitar players, and one of them is Mark Biederman, who was one of the guitar players that Sandy hired after, it was going to be a Blue Oyster Cult record, and he played a bunch of stuff. And he was telling me, I played on Gil Blanco County, and I played on Girl That Left Me Blind. I'm like, well, I've never heard of any of that. The only thing that I've ever heard that he's done is the guitar solo on Frankenstein, which is a combination of him and Joe Satriani.
And is that the only thing that Satriani played on?
Like I say, I have never heard these tapes. Now, I know where they are. They reside in San Francisco. A guy who has an audio rental company, and he has a big warehouse. He's got them stored there, and we're trying to figure out what to do with them.
God, that would be cool just to hear some of that and how classic with.
I would love to get my hands on these tapes and see what, or to even like Robby played on In the Presence of Another World, played on I'm the One You Warn Me Of, and of course Girl That Loved Me Blind and Blue Oyster Cult. So yeah, out of the 9 songs, I think he played on 5. So I would love to hear what he did on those songs. Now that I know where this, I had Blue Oyster Cult around 2012. They put out the box set, and so I said, why don't you remix my version of Imaginos and put it as a added disc, a bonus disc. It'd make the people have to buy it. And they're like, oh, it didn't sell that well, and Columbia doesn't want to spend any money. I said, well, listen, I'll mix it myself. You give me the tapes, I will digitize them and mix them in my studio. And they're like, nah, they don't want to pay for another CD. I'm like, what?
That's absurd.
That's pennies. And so the reality is, and they weren't telling me this because maybe they thought it would upset me, but they didn't know where the tapes were.
But since then, they've tracked them down.
Yeah, well, it was Sandy's cousin, Michelle, Sandy Pearlman's cousin, who found the tapes. What is all this crap doing in this studio that I'm paying for? He had this Alpha and Omega studio, and I thought he had bought it, but actually he was just renting it. So she sold all the gear, and what wasn't already sold already, and she had the tapes, and she's like, what do I do with these? I mean, does anybody want them? I said, I'll take them. Then it was like, oh, well, there's a lot of them. There's like 30 tapes and 1,500 pounds shipping. Okay. So I'm working out a deal where they're going to digitize them for me. I also have to get the okay from Sony. So it really technically belongs to them. Although Blue Oyster Cult is paid for those tapes. I'm paid for them over and over. So, I don't know who really owns them morally.
Right. Morally, you guys, Blue Oyster Cult does. Yeah, legally, the label probably.
Yeah.